So I'd like to introduce Christina to you guys. Like I said, I've known of Christina for a long time. I've actually used her service, and she's in Delaware. She does a lot of lead generation stuff in Delaware for real estate investors all throughout the country. So I really wanted to have her speak to you guys because she knows what's going on from a lead generation standpoint everywhere. Not just in her little corner of the country, but everywhere. And she's working with the biggest names in real estate. We're very, very fortunate to have her this evening, and I'm fortunate to call you a friend. Please, guys, get up on your feet and welcome to Birmingham, Miss Christina Krause. We didn't even mic you up.
I can holler for about
You can
an
holler.
hour. So while they're getting set up, man, I really honestly did not know. I mean, I knew Brian, and his reputation preceded him a little bit, but I didn't know much, obviously specifically about your group here. I gotta tell you, you guys, I mean, you've got Jeff coming, you've got Tom coming. I mean, these are no joke. You've had Joe McCall, you've had Sean McCloskey, and these are no joke speakers. I mean, this is legit. I mean, you guys are getting some serious people in here. I'm saying it just so that I want to highlight how fortunate that you are to be a part of a REIA that brings that kind of value. It's rare, and I this is what I do, and it's rare for me to be able to stand in front of a room and know that you guys are bringing in some big names. That's a credit to you too, because one of the reasons why some of us will go and actually speak to groups like you guys is at the end of the day, is it a good? We want to know that we're making a difference. So let me circle back around too and just say that you've got Jeff coming, you've got Tom coming. And then you've got Gary, who was making me swoony back there, talking about what he was talking about. I'm not playing. That is some serious, that's some serious stuff that he's bringing. I'm going to tell you right now that what he's about to bring you next month is way more valuable than the next three, than me and the next two speakers combined. No kidding, because we're going to bring you some real valuable information, but he's bringing you some local stuff, and he's bringing you strategies. What's funny about what you were talking about is that I'm going to talk to you guys. One of the things I want to talk to you guys about is finding really unique ways to find motivated sellers. He could come up and give my presentation. No joke. So seriously, you guys have some rock star presentations and presenters here, and it's a credit to what Brian is doing. Just looking out at the sea of faces here, I mean, you guys are fortunate to be a part of it, and you are a part of it. You are what makes a group like this so valuable. So one of the things that I noticed as I was kind of walking back and forth is, some people standing around and talking, some people sitting. Man, I want to encourage you guys when you come out to these things to step out of your comfort zone. All it takes is walking up to someone and introducing yourself. Please do that. What Brian said is so true. This is all about networking. So it's all about meeting people. One of the best ways that you can meet, Brian mentioned it while he was here. I don't know, he didn't talk a lot about the event, but these boot camps that Brian's putting on, I can't say enough about the value of those kinds of things, not just because of what you're going to learn at these types of boot camps, but because that's an even bigger opportunity for you to connect with people in your market that are going to change your life. One of the things that made me feel luckiest is the fact that I've been around a while. I've been in real estate since 1999. A lot of the guys that I know, Joe McCall, Tom Terrell, Sean McCloskey, I know these guys because we grew up together. It's not because of what I do now. We all kind of grew up together in a setting just like this. We got connected. I met Sean McCloskey at a boot camp. That's the kind of people that you guys are going to meet if you will invest in yourself, if you'll go to these 3-day events. It was a 3-day event that I met Sean McCloskey, JP Moses, some of the people that, some of the names that you would recognize today. I met those kinds of people in these boot camps. where we were all just hustling. We were all just doing our thing. We learned valuable things, but we also networked with each other. And you guys are gonna make friendships in those types of classes that are gonna last a lifetime. And on top of that, you're gonna stand on each other's shoulders. So you never know, one day you might go to a 3-day boot camp, and next thing you know, not 10 years later, I don't wanna age myself that much, but 6, 7 years later, you guys are gonna be sitting around the table going, man, look at how far we've come, and it's going to be because you're rubbing shoulders and iron sharpens iron, right? All right, let me pull this up.
Christina, I'm going to interrupt you
Yes.
because your microphone's not working.
Oh,
So
okay.
we need to switch this out.
Okay.
You do what you're doing.
All right.
Sorry, guys. She was on a roll.
All right, so I've already been introduced. My name is Christina Krause, and I told you guys I've been an investor myself, and to this day, I am an active investor to this day. I still work my own market. One of the reasons why I do it, frankly, is to stay up to date with the marketing. I want to be engaged in marketing. I'm responsible for handling the marketing campaigns for some of the biggest real estate investors across the nation. So I think it's really important that I'm also an actual active investor. It allows me to bring a direct perspective to the work that I'm doing. So, got my start back in 1999. I started in buy and holds. I'm going to age myself, so I'm just going to tell you guys right now I'm 43, so nobody starts calculating and while I'm doing my presentation. But does anybody remember Carlton Sheets?
Oh,
All right, okay, all right. Some of you youngsters won't understand this, but Carlton Sheets was one of the infomercial type of guys, and Carlton Sheets is kind of how I got my start. I was on vacation with my family. I remember being up late because we were on vacation, and I watched a Carlton Sheets video, and I bought it. I actually bought it and then didn't do anything with it for like a couple of years. I put it aside. I always knew I wanted to do real estate, but I wasn't, the commercial intrigued me. I bought it, set it aside. At the time, I was managing a department in a bank, and I was training a new manager to take over. So they said, listen, for the next week, we want you to be there just in case anything horrible happens, but we kind of want you to be hands off. We don't want you to be on the floor. We don't want you to be managing. So bring a book, do whatever you need to do. Brought the Carlton Sheets course in that night, read it. I was working the night shift at the time. Read it over the course of that one night. The very next evening for me, the day, when I went home, I was on the phone and I bought my first 2 properties that day, owner financing, which was his primary strategy at the time. So clearly I'm a hustler and always will be a hustler, but got my start in buy and hold. Very quickly, once you get into buy and hold, you kind of understand that, okay, I've done a couple of turnovers, I've done a couple rental turnovers, I could probably flip a property. So we got into flipping as well. But I would say that the vast majority of what I did, at least early on, was rentals. At our height, we had about 280 doors. And then managed another 400 units for other people. So not only, we were kind of also flipping rentals, turnkey rentals, so we did turnkey rentals to other investors and then managed those rentals for them. Today, my primary focus is Postal Impact. Postal Impact, as we've said before, is a marketing company for real estate investors across the nation, and we specialize in finding super unique leads for our clients. So we can kind of get any lead, but one of the things I'm going to challenge you guys to do tonight is to think about really elegant ways to reach out to motivated sellers, to find motivated sellers specifically. As the market has become more competitive, some of the more common leads are being hit really, really hard from multiple investors. Now, that does not mean that you shouldn't be hitting those markets. But one of the things that we encourage our clients to do is to find very unique ways to reach a super targeted audience and then market to them in a really, really specific way. So we'll go over all of that tonight. Like I said, I'm not intending to hold anything back on you guys here. We'll go over all of that. So the first thing that I want to do before we get into the specifics of marketing, one of the things that people always want to know from me, it's probably the most asked question, is they want to know
based on the fact that I get to work and I am friends with some of the real big guys in the business, like what would they say? That's almost always people want to know, like, what do you think they would say? What are they doing? What's working for them in their market? So I've kind of compiled over the last couple of years what I find are common threads between a lot of the really big investors. Hopefully this will help you. So the first thing, and it's no surprise to me that Brian was emphasizing this, it is 100% about network. I mean, this kind of group, this kind of meetup, to have this kind of meetup even available to you, I wish I could tell you how many clients I work with that say, I don't have anything like this. And their option is to go and start something, which is, there's something to be said for that. But for you guys to have this handed to you on a silver platter like this, and for Brian to be bringing the kind of names that he's bringing in here, I mean, that's just gold. Again, I want to also say, I saw a lot of people kind of sitting around, don't waste this opportunity, go up. I know it sucks. Believe it or not, I hate it. Like, I have to tell myself, all right, go up and say hi. But all you have to do is say hi, and the rest is going to come. Hey, this is what I do. What market are you working in? Some of you guys will recognize those that I talk to you. What market are you in? What zip codes are you working in? Figure out what you're going to ask people and ask those questions, but find a way to connect directly with people because it's really important. Another thing that is a really common factor that I find with the big real estate investors, I cannot think of one, I'm trying to think of any, not that are in my circle, that do not have a mentor or have some kind of continuing education or mastermind group that they're a part of. But very specifically a mentor. I want to just stay on this for a moment. I still to this day have a business mentor, like an individual business mentor, the same mentor that was with me when I first started, and I've continued to have him as a mentor to this day. And I know a lot of the bigger guys also have some kind of business mentor, some of them have spiritual mentors. I cannot say enough about the accountability that a mentor is going to bring you. An individual coach, we'll call it a coach, it is worth every dime that you might spend as far as investment is concerned in yourself. And I cannot tell you, there's so many decisions. We'll talk a little bit later on about some of the difficult times that I went through. And I'm telling you right now, had I had my mentor when I made some of the decisions that ultimately legit took us down, I probably wouldn't have made some of the decisions that I did, even if I just had had someone to bounce some of those ideas off of. So I got to tell you guys, I could not more strongly recommend individual coaching. It's not something that only newbie people do. It's something that not only newbie people do, and I think they're incredibly lucky. If you're just getting in and you have an opportunity to be mentored or coached, I think you're very fortunate. But even for experienced investors, there's just nothing like having a coach or a mentor to bounce things off of. Continuing education, things like the boot camp that's coming up, you're not above that stuff, man. So not only is it an opportunity for you to network, but it's an opportunity for you to get into your market and get immersed into your market and get excited about the things that you're going to be doing. Something that Brian said again earlier was focus. I have seen so many people spread themselves too thin over all of the different methods and marketing ideas, and everybody wants to do everything. And it's very, as entrepreneurs, all of us get really excited about different things. To this day, I'm not so bad now, but back in the day, I mean, you know, I even remember some of, you know, I'm thinking of Joe just because I know that he was here, Joe McCarr or Sean. I can't tell you how many times those guys would be sitting around a table and they'd be like, oh, there's this supplement and I'm gonna sell this supplement and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. So we all get sucked into that too. Probably not so much anymore, because I think a lot of us have learned that it is absolutely critical that whatever it is that you decide to do, even within real estate, even if you're not looking outside of real estate, even within real estate, find your niche, find what feels really good to you, and just make sure that you perfect that. And once you perfect that, make sure you do it over and over and over and over, and don't get distracted. Again, I will share with you later what we did that took us down, and it shouldn't have taken us down. We didn't do it out of greed. We didn't get involved in something because we were, it was just an opportunity. And it distracted us from what we were doing that was working. What we were doing was working like mad. And I feel like every time, because we're entrepreneurs and we're creative, when something's working, you want to get to the next thing and you want to be excited about something. You got to find a way to stay excited about what you're doing and put that on rinse and repeat. And just do it over and over and over again. The other thing, for sure, I think, and this is entrepreneurs in general, not just in real estate, but entrepreneurs in general, man, this is all about mindset. Like longevity in any business, in real estate, in whatever it is that you're doing, it's about mindset. It's about deciding what your reality is going to be. I'm a huge believer in the fact that you are a creator of your circumstance. And if you think about even your day when you wake up, you can decide if you're going to have a good day, if you're going to have a bad day, based on what you focus on. That's the bottom line. And if you don't believe me, try doing it sometime. You get up and you can either focus on the bad things that have happened, or you could choose to focus on the good things that have happened. Now I'm saying this, and I'm a student of what I'm saying as well, because I would say for about a month, just coming out of 2017 and into the beginning of 2018, I kept saying out of my mouth, 2017 was my most devastating year. Never been more devastated in all of my life. That was a really, really difficult year for me. And I kept saying it over and over. And I was saying it kind of like, 2018 is going to be better. But I'm telling you, I could do one of two things, because I actually had to change my mindset, and this is a relatively recent realization for me, because I kept saying it and I didn't realize what I was doing. There were some really stinking, devastating things that happened to me in 2017 on a personal level that I did not have any control over whatsoever, all right? And I could tell you that story and you would agree with me. You would be like, man, I cannot believe that happened, and then that happened, and then that happened. Doesn't it seem like that? Like, doesn't it seem like it comes in waves? You're like, man, I could have taken that one thing, but it was one thing after 5 different things. So I could sit here and I could give you the details of that, okay? But what I realized, I think like mid-January, I looked back and I went, you know what? If I told a different story, there was some stinking amazing things that happened to me in 2017. Like outrageously miraculous, amazing things that happened in 2017. And the way that you guys view my year depends entirely on what I decide I'm going to focus on and tell you. So I could sit here and give you a sob story and tell you everything that happened to me that was horrible in 2017, or I can shift my own mindset. I could also sit here and tell you some of the most ridiculously amazing things that happened in my business, in my personal life, with my children, at my church. And if I had chosen to focus on those as I look back on that year, if that was what I chose to focus on, I could legitimately make an argument for the fact that 2018 was one of the most amazing years of my life. Certainly a turnaround year, right? So in real estate, same thing. You've got to focus on, you've got to pick what you're going to focus on, and you have to make sure that you're not focusing on the wrong thing, because if you do, I'm telling you, half of you in this room are not going to be here in a year if you choose to focus on the wrong thing, because you're going to allow your circumstances to dictate your excitement about what you're doing and whether or not you're going to continue to do it. All right? Okay, so let's dive a little bit deeper into marketing. Hopefully that was helpful for you. It's just one of the most common questions that I get, so I normally try to accommodate people and tell people what I know some of the most successful real estate investors, what's a commonality between them. So marketing, like I said, Postal Impact, we focus on more elegantly approaching lead gen, because there's a lot of companies out there. Again, I am not knocking your typical lead gen. I'm not knocking high equity, absentee owner, not knocking those things. Those things are successful. We specialize in trying to find really unique ways to identify motivated sellers, okay? So, give me just tell me some of the common things, some of the things that, if somebody were to say, if somebody were standing here in front of the room and they were to say, what are some of the what would you do to market? What are some of the common things that that you see, that, you kind of see everybody doing? Just shout it out.
Yellow letters.
Yellow letters, yes.
Car magnets.
Yep, car magnets. Bandit signs, right? What kind of lists do you think are pretty typical? Absentee, I mentioned that. Probate's not typical. Come on, that's what I do. So there are some common ways, and there's nothing wrong with having that be a part of what you do. I'm here tonight to trigger your minds, because here's the bottom line. There are things that I can do, there are things that I do, and then there are things that the typical investor, the boots on the ground, I can't compete with that for 1,000,000 trillion years. All right, so a big company it's kind of like, have you ever noticed that there's not any really big companies out there doing the fix and flips? And I'm talking like major companies. And there's a reason for that. There's huge value to individual investors. That's not, it's such an elegant business that it's not, everything doesn't fit into a model. So it can't be done. One of the things that I think we need to be aware of some of the marketing methods that people are using, like Zillow, and some of these bigger companies are coming in and finding a way to effectively market. But when it comes to the actual transaction, all right, nobody can beat you guys, because it's all about relationship, and they don't have that relationship. Okay, so when you are actually able to go and meet with the seller, and you are actually able to connect them with a buyer, or you actually fix and flip that house, the truth of the matter is there's always going to be a job for you, because that's not something that can be duplicated on a really massive scale very well, or you'd see it being done. We wouldn't be sitting here if somebody could duplicate that on a huge, massive scale. None of us would be sitting here, because none of us would have any deals left. All right. If you study what's average, then you're going to remain average. So what I'm going to encourage you to do tonight is to start to open up your minds to think about what are some really unique ways for me to find motivated sellers, because that's what we all want to do, right? It's all about lead gen. And everything always starts with an idea, everything. There's nothing on the planet that exists that didn't start at some point with somebody sitting down and purposefully taking time to say, let me think about that. All right, let's create that chandelier. Let's create a carpet. Everything started with an idea. And what that means is that you can think all you want, that you have, that somebody has already thought of a way to market to motivated sellers. But I promise you that if you will be purposeful about sitting down and thinking about a way to reach your target audience, you can we could sit in this room and come up with 100 ideas that are so uncommon that it would blow your mind. If you would be purposeful about thinking about that, you could come up with a really, really unique way to hit your market that nobody else has thought of, and you can find your own niche on your own. All right? Okay, so let's talk about hot lead types. One of the coolest things that I do get to do is I do get to work with investors across the nation. So what I do get to do is I get to step back from a high level and watch what's working, because there is something to be said for that, man. I don't know what it is. I wish I could I wish I could say what it is, but it seems to work in waves, and it seems to work across the nation. So another reason why it's really valuable to be connected in a group like this is to hear what's working, because what tends to work at one time seems to work in waves, and then it might go down and up and down. Direct mail, the response rate for direct mail across the nation is down. I don't understand why in Alabama, the mail rate is responding very similarly in Tennessee or in Washington, but it does. It really does. So you want to stay connected, and you want to know, kind of what's working, so that because you want to ride those waves. Understand that the wave is not going to last forever, but get on it while you can, of course. So, what's working right now? Of course, probates. The reason why, and does everybody understand what a probate is? Okay, no, good. I'm glad I'm seeing that. All right, so probate leads are leads that are generated as the result of anytime somebody dies in a county, in a specific county, if they have an asset or a group of assets that exceed a certain dollar amount that is set individually by county, by the way, so it's different in every single county, in every single state, all right? So in every single state, based on demographics, based on all kinds of things, the county will set a dollar limit, and if someone's assets exceed that dollar limit, then they that heir, that family member, has to go into the court and they have to file paperwork in order for that asset to be distributed. All right, and it could range anywhere from $30,000 to $150,000, depending on what state you're in. In California, most of the thresholds are in the six-figure realm, but it's not $5,000. It's normally a relatively significant amount of money, which means that normally real estate is associated with that, because not many people have $50,000 worth of fur, or a boat sitting around, or something that's going to hit that kind of level. So someone has to go into the courthouse to publicly file the fact, or publicly declare that they want this asset, that this person who is deceased, distributed. They want to be able to liquidate that asset. They want to be able to take it, or they want to sell it so that they can have their inheritance. It's normally an inheritance. So they walk into the courthouse, they do that. Here's how you find, well, it's a public record, the fact that they walk into the courthouse. The purpose of that is, number one, for the county to make money, because there's taxes and things like that that are associated with it. But number two, the heir has to notify, put on public notice, and put out on certain publications, and it's different for every county. But there are requirements that the county has, that this person has to notify, put on public notice that, hey, there's an asset related to this person's estate. The purpose of that is so that if anybody is owed money by the person who is deceased, they can make a claim against the estate and they can be paid. All right, does that make sense? So as real estate investors, we identify those people because we understand that there is very likely, not guaranteed, but very likely there is a home that needs to be sold associated with that particular estate. Now, for those of you who work probates, this is a very common question. Is there a way to filter down the lead to make sure that there is a home associated with that estate? Yes, there is. It's very complicated to do it. In some states it's not. In some states it's right there and it's no big deal. In other states you literally have to go to a different courthouse. I mean, it's very complicated, but here's why you don't want to do it. It's not because it's complicated. The reason why you do not want to filter those probate leads, if you guys decide to go out and get them, and one of the things that I said I was going to do, and I absolutely will do it, I'm going to tell you guys how to get that, but I will give you the book that I wrote about probates, okay? So I'm going to try not to dive too deep into this particular lead, but I'm going to tell you how to go get it from the courthouse. If you go get it from the courthouse and you go, well, I'm here, I might as well filter it, do not filter that lead to ensure that there's not real estate, because in almost every instance, there's a couple counties that are exceptions, but nothing in Alabama. In almost every instance, if a home is being passed from one spouse to another, it does not have to go through probate. 35 to 40% of the homes that I buy in probate, and probate is the only lead up until very recently that I have marketed to. For 7 years, I've marketed exclusively myself to probate. That's how lucrative that lead is. It's just been a slam dunk lead for me. But 35 to 40% of the homes that I buy are from a spouse. If I had filtered out that lead to only include real estate, I would have missed all of that opportunity. Also, as investors have become, or as people have become more savvy, if they've done any estate planning whatsoever, that won't hit that either, because they've already done estate planning, so it's not going to hit probate. Does that make sense? So, anybody have any ideas? Just shout it out why probates are absolutely known to be the most lucrative lead out there.
Motivated seller.
Motivated seller? Equity, absolutely. Both reasons, okay? So, first of all, you are identifying, let's say you're mailing high equity absentee owner, okay? Even if you could reach 100% of those people, what percentage of those people do you think actually have a home they want to sell? Guess. About 10%. You're absolutely right. anywhere from 8 to 10% typically, even if 100% of the people that you send a postcard to or a mailer to open up that mailer, only 8 to 10% of those people actually have any interest whatsoever in selling their home. In the case of probate, they're saying, I want to liquidate this asset. So the key with probate is getting your message opened. Okay, we'll talk about that later. The other thing, of course, is equity. Because typically, in most deals, there's either no debt on the property or there is a much smaller amount of debt associated with the property. So if you're, for example, marketing to people who are delinquent, very often you're going to get people, 80% of the people that call you, you can't help anyway because they don't have enough equity in their home. Their home is over leveraged. Not usually the case with probate. Okay, so probate is an incredibly valuable lead. Again, I'm not going to dive into how you get that lead. I cannot stress to you more how valuable a lead that is. But again, when you get my book, I will actually tell you how to go get that lead for yourself. All right. Tax delinquents. Any ideas why tax delinquents might be a really? There's the obvious. You get somebody who's in trouble. Clearly somebody's in trouble. But why do you think tax delinquents have more equity than not? Any thoughts on that? Yeah, which means what? If the mortgage company is not paying the taxes, right, because typically if there is a first lien on it, now oftentimes you're going to get people who've leveraged it up with second lien, in which case the mortgage company is not going to require that the payment be escrowed. But if somebody's delinquent on their taxes, it's very likely that they don't have a high first mortgage on it, because otherwise the mortgage company would be requiring that the taxes be paid by them to make sure they don't lose the home. Okay, so I love that you talked about tax delinquents. That's super hot right now. Again, I'm not just talking about leads that I recommend. What I'm talking to you specifically about right now are the leads that are super hot and performing really, really well right now for whatever the reason. Okay. Absentee vacant. This is one of the leads that we came up with in a brainstorming type of session. So we'll sit down and we'll say, all right, and I really encourage you guys to do this. You know your demographic, you know your market, and that's really what you need to look at. You need to look at your specific area, and you need to ask yourself, what are the signs that I can look for that would indicate to me that somebody would be a motivated seller, right? So this is how we brainstormed this lead and tested this lead. It's called the absentee vacant lead. It's absentee owners cross-checked with the United States Postal Service vacant house list. So we know that not only does the owner not live in the house, but we also know that at the time that the database was pulled, the house was vacant. My personal opinion, this lead right now is absolutely crushing it for my clients. I cannot stress, it's outperforming probate, which is pretty rare. But I think the reason why, and this is the kind of thing you need to pay attention to, and it's why I tell people, buy it now, buy it right now, buy the database right now, and mail it as hard as you can. I think it's because of the cold snap. I don't know that you guys really went through this, but especially on the East Coast, in Florida, in Texas, you get these cold, in Georgia, yeah, you did, because in Georgia, you get these cold snaps, and what you have to think about, honestly, is you have to go, okay, and this is my logic for why this lead is working. People are freaked out now. I saw all over Facebook people posting pictures of like burst pipes. Did any of you guys have that in your feed? Because I have a lot of real estate people. Man, watch your Facebook feed and look at what the fear is at that moment, and pay attention to that kind of stuff, because that's the kind of stuff that make you go, I need to hit that lead right now. That is the first time in 7 years I decided, because my clients were doing so well with it, I said, all right, I'm going to mail the absentee vacant lead. It's the first time in 7 years I've mailed anything but probate. I almost didn't want to do it because I wanted to be able to keep saying I only mail probate. I mailed that lead, and we are literally right now trying to figure out how to onboard buyer acquisition people to handle the lead gen that's coming in, the leads that are coming in. Again, I think it's for a limited period of time. You got to pay attention, and when that wave is gone, then you got to ask yourself what else is going on. Divorce is a really hot one right now. People who are recently divorced, marketing to those people in case they have a home to sell. And then again, I cannot stress to you guys enough to think about your market. I have clients that do really, really well by customizing the lead. So, for example, I have a guy in Maryland who's just doing incredibly well. He targets like 3 specific zip codes, and he knows those zip codes like the back of his hand. And in his particular market, it's not this way for everyone. It certainly wouldn't be this way in Delaware, but in Maryland, there could be a zip code where the vast majority of the houses, let's say 90% of the houses, all fall into a certain price range. Okay, so what he does, and he's well known in these markets. He's been working in these markets. So he says, all right, if the average home value in this particular zip code is $400,000, then Christina, I want you to tell me every single house that transferred in any way for $100,000 or less in the last 6 years. Does that make sense? Why? That's an elegant way of thinking about it. Because what he's saying is, shoot, if the average price for home price for sale in this particular zip code is $400,000, and there's $100,000 or less transfer, then it was either a distressed property or it was an inherited property that was handed over and transferred for a small amount of money, for $1, for $10, whatever. And he targets that list and he crushes it. So I'm just trying to give you guys some ideas to think about some unique ways to target your markets, all right? Situational, that's that absentee vacant. Another really cool thing that a client of mine did is there were a rash of burglaries. Was it burglaries? No, it was shooting. There were 2 shootings in a neighborhood. And he crushed that neighborhood. Like he sent mailers out to that entire neighborhood. It was more like a section, and he sent mailers out to that neighborhood, like We Buy Homes mailers, and he got a bunch of calls from it because people who were living there were freaked out by the fact that and it was these random shootings. It wasn't a bad area. It just happened. It was just an oddity that kind of happened, and he blanketed that area with mailers and got. I forget how many deals that he told me he got from it. Four deals, I think, from blanketing that area with mailers. But that's the kind of thing you need to think about. Not that you're kind of trying to capitalize on people's misery, but the truth of the matter is those people wanted to get out, and they were going to get out one way or the other. So you want to target those people. Okay, so let's get into the specifics. This is the stuff that gets me really excited, because this is the stuff I think we do really, really well, and I love it. Let's talk about direct mail. I'm going to talk about 2 kinds of marketing that we do, because Postal Impact is a completely done-for-you marketing company. So not only do we find a way to get difficult leads for you, like probates and the absentee vacants, but then we actually do all of the marketing for you. We take it completely out of your hands, and we do all of the marketing for you. So I'm going to tell you guys what's working for us right now, because we test every stinking little thing to make sure that when we're sending out a direct mailer or when we're executing a marketing plan for somebody, that we're covering all of our bases. So the first thing that I want to say to you guys is that direct mail is a long game. It is the biggest game in the business. It's the one that's going to last the longest. It stands the test of time. But when you get involved in direct mail marketing, you really have to understand that you're in it for the long run. You're not going to send your mailers out and get a deal. It can happen, but you have to understand that this is not going to generate 3-4 deals for you right off the bat. I don't know why that is. I just know that it is. 3 months for some strange reason. I don't know what that number is, but 3 months with our clients, we always tell our clients, first of all, when they sign on, we say, man, you got to stick with us for 6 months. You have to be committed to sticking with us for 6 months, or find another way. Find a different method, but don't do direct mail. Because with direct mail, you've got to stick with it, and then you have to drip those leads constantly. 3 months seems to be the marker. So I want you guys to have that in your head. If you're going to send direct mail marketing, you just have to, you need to do it. If you're going to have longevity in this business, direct mail has to be a part of your marketing plan, but you also have to know that it's not going to feel sexy in month 3 when you're writing that check and you haven't had your deal yet. But you've got to stick to it, because once you hit that momentum, if you can maintain that momentum, then you're going to win with direct mail every single time. All right, so it's a long game. So what are the best ways to market to direct mail? Letters versus postcards. Any ideas? Any thoughts? Do you send a letter? Do you send a postcard? Any thoughts on that? Postcards. Why?
Cheaper.
Okay.
And they quicker to read.
Yep. Yep. Okay. All right. And I agree, especially if you're mailing a common lead. I don't see any reason for you to spend a whole lot of money on a letter versus a postcard. Hit that thing. I have people that send out 100,000 postcards a month, and they just rinse and repeat and bang, 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 and do that. Those are for common leads. The leads that I suggest that you send a letter versus a postcard, and these are the only leads that I suggest sending that on, is when you have a group of people, and it's a smaller group of people. I do have people that mail very, very large amounts of letters because they work. But when you have a large group of people, or you have a super hot lead, or a really targeted message, probates fall into this category. We have found that absentee vacant fall into this category as well. You want to hit absentee vacant a couple times with a really nice mailer. I'm going to show you some examples of that. But the bottom line is, if you have a lead that you think is particularly valuable, you really want to consider at least once hitting it with something really special to try to get their attention, okay? You can always drip it and continue to mail it with a postcard, but we would really highly suggest a letter. I'm going to show you what that looks like. Timing. This is a big one. How often do you think you should... Does everybody know what I mean when I say drip a campaign? Okay, I'm glad I asked that question then. With direct mail, I can't think of any scenario, unless you're going back and mailing something really old and hitting it once. With direct mail, you need to hit it more than one time. I have people that have me on an automatic 12-letter drip campaign, and they just mail it and mail it and mail it and mail it and mail it. Any ideas why?
In their circumstances.
They become familiar with it. You get your name out there. All of those are good things. The biggest thing with dripping is people's motivation changes all the time. People's circumstances change all the time. It could change in a day. I mean, all of us have had that, right? Where like our circumstances have changed in one day. One day you thought everything was one way, and then the next day it's a completely different way. So you want to keep hitting those. Now, I'll caution you, you got to think, like with probates, why wouldn't, let me not ask a leading question, why wouldn't you mail probates 2 years after you've got the lead? Yeah, because probate in and of itself, somebody is going before a judge and saying, Judge, I want permission to liquidate this asset. So the likelihood that 2 years after they went through all that trouble to ask a judge to liquidate that asset still exists and hasn't been liquidated is pretty small. Now, darn. Ooh, what are we going to do? Is there a power cord here? Dang. I don't have, hey, seriously, is there a power cord?
Let me think for a second.
I thought I charged it up, but it's getting tired of my voice. I have a really boring PowerPoint presentation, and here's why. I'm like the most technologically challenged person. So when my guys like do all the fly-in stuff, I get so gummed up with this stuff that I'm like, listen, take it all out and just give me the basics. So I don't even know how to. I'm the worst. All right. So, well, I'll tell you what. Let me do this, because I want you guys to see this, just in case. All right, I'm going to give you some examples. If I lose this, I want to be able to. Oh, is this a power cord? Oh no, that's not right. Okay. If I lose this, I want you guys to see this stuff, and then we can talk through the rest. These are some examples of the kind of mailers that we use. If you're going to mail a letter, you might as well like crush the letter, okay? Don't like, if you're gonna do it right, all right? So this is what we have found is working incredibly well. It's hard to see it on here, but these are called craft envelopes, the envelopes that have the grain in them. Have you ever seen those? So we use those. We try to pay attention to color. This is big, man. See this flap on here? Can you see that? It's called a Euro flap. It goes down like a point. That's the kind of flap that's going to get you the ideal response rate. Believe it or not, and here's the funny thing. See this? This is a address label that we put on our envelopes. And the reason why we do that is because we found that the open rate for an unsealed envelope is much higher than for a sealed envelope. And one of the ways that we know that happens is we'll send it to people and we'll see, what does it feel like when you flip through your mail? Like what grabs your attention? What we found is that if somebody even has the slightest suspicion that something is marketing, they're way more likely if you eliminate the barrier of entry and you make it as easy as possible, even if they're like, man, it might be, but let me just flip this up. So it's easy to slide your finger under that and flip that up. And then you've got them. You've got them with your message, okay? So this is really important. We find that not sealing the envelope, which is great for you, because let me tell you something, I've had some wicked paper cuts on my tongue from licking those things. And I'm not playing around when I say that. We've been there, done that. But if you get those, and those are just those Avery label things. You want to make it look nice. You know what I mean? You want to maybe use a color and make it match your envelope. But that makes it a whole lot easier. All right, this is really cool. I did not mention the stamps, but you need to do a first-class stamp. These are both examples of physically handwritten addresses on envelopes. Both of these were written by a human being, okay? And both of these are examples of mailed. Who would open the first one versus the second one? Who would open the second one? Wait, nobody would open any of them? Come on, you're killing me. If you had to choose, let me put it that way. Okay, all of you guys are experienced and you wouldn't open either of them. But if you had to choose one that you would open, which one would you open? The top one, right? We actually had to tell this handwriter to mess her handwriting up. We said it's too perfect. It looks like a machine wrote it. And it was physically handwritten by a person, right? So the reason why I'm bringing this point up is A, you don't have to have the best handwriting in the world when you're writing these letters, and you don't want to have the best handwriting in the world when you're opening these letters, because to me, this looks, if I had to choose one that looks like it could be marketing, it would be this one. Here's another thing, and it's why we have the ability to do pre-sorted stamps for our clients, but I almost refuse to do them. This is a live stamp, but it's a pre-sorted stamp. And 2 years ago, they stopped postmarking pre-sorted stamps. So both of these are mailed letters, but this one screams marketing because while that's a live stamp, it doesn't have that postmark on it. And that immediately can be immediately then identified as marketing, okay? So it's not worth the 20 cents you save. If you're going to send a letter and you're going to spend the money sending a letter, you need to do it with a first-class stamp so that you get that postmark. Now, let's talk about the handwriting on the top, because sometimes we do really nice handwriting like that if we want it to look like maybe a wedding invitation, and then we'll mix up, when I say you drip, we'll mix up the next letter with color. But look at the handwriting on that. It looks like a 16-year-old wrote a birthday invitation out. It's one of our best response envelopes. All right? So it doesn't have to look pretty. In fact, sometimes it needs to be legible, but sometimes it's actually very appealing for it to not look so beautiful. I literally have clients sometimes calling and saying, this person's handwriting kind of sucks, and I liked the other lady's handwriting. I'm like, yeah, but do you really want the same handwriting every single time? So think about things like that. Oh, you can't see it very well. This was our October mailer. I'm just doing this because this tickles me. This is the mailer that we sent in October. You see the pumpkin stamp. You can't see how gorgeous that orange is, but seriously, I'm completely in love with that mailer, and that mailer killed it. So try to do seasonal stuff. Think about it. Really what you want to do, honestly, again, is you want to think, like if you're flipping through your mail, think about what would appeal to you. Think about what you would open and do something similar to that, okay? These are very, very easy to do. Did we find, okay, all right. Well, the truth of the matter is, the good news is I got through the visual stuff. Okay, so when you're doing letters and or postcards, the question becomes, is message important? I think with postcards, probably not as, like you want to make sure that you get your message across. It's so hard. We've tested like a little bit of writing, and then I have some clients who literally have like a book on the back of their postcard, and it works. So it's one of those things where I can't really tell you this is the message that works or this is the message that doesn't. You kind of have to test it in your own market and see what's responsive for you. I will tell you that I would caution you on some of the alarming postcards. I don't know if you guys have seen them, but I literally know people who've gotten into trouble for the postcards that are like final notice, you better call, or you know, something that's going to happen. It's the stuff that's alarming. I'm not saying don't. I hate to tell people do or don't do it because I'm not necessarily the authority. But here's the bottom line: if a message makes you feel icky, then don't do it. I have probate clients. In our probate letters and the scripts that we give our clients, we actually reference the estate. But I have some clients who have they get in their mind about the fact that they're talking to people who've passed away or talking to a loved one who passed away. And the truth of the matter is, if it bothers you, then it's going to come across. So we have those clients send just a generic We Buy Homes letter so that it's not referencing the estate in any way, shape, or form. Not because it's going to upset the person who's calling, but because if you're not comfortable with that, it's going to come across, all right? The other thing that I would say that is important with message is the voice and the tone of your letter. If you're super casual on the phone, don't send something that's really like something you pulled off Google that's really verbose and super professional and is not consistent with who you are on the phone. You want to make sure that the voice of your letter is consistent. Does that make sense? And then, of course, with mail marketing, it's all about consistency, being methodical and unwavering, and making sure that no matter what, you're going to keep sending those mailers out over and over and over and over again. With mailers also, and with any kind of marketing, I would say, it's really important that you take, that you don't feel like you have to send 5,000 at one time. I'd rather see you, if you're going to send 10,000 letters, I'd rather see you stay, and that's your entire budget. So then you're going to send out 10,000 mailers, but then you're not going to do anything again for 6 months. I'd rather see you break that up into 6 months and mail that consistently over 6 months. The main point, especially with direct mail, again, I don't know what law it is that governs that, but you have to be consistent with it. So you want to make sure that every single month you're sending something. So I would rather see you break that up than crush it. And that's a really super common mistake. People will send out 50,000 postcards. They'll get 2 or 3 deals out of it. They'll work those deals, and then they'll figure out that, you know, they're 2-3 weeks away from the renovation being done. They're like, oh crap, I don't have another deal. Let me send out another 50,000 postcards. What they've done is they've lost all that momentum. They've just squandered that momentum, and they're going to have to start all over again. So you want to maintain your momentum. All right. Okay. So second method of marketing. Who in here has heard of or does outbound calling? What time is it, Brian?
You're good. I'm gonna move your computer over here, so okay.
Yeah. Anybody? Okay, man, I'm about to light you guys up. So, this is big. The cord is in my purse, or not purse, but in my bag. It's the only cord in there. All right, so one of the things that Postal Impact now does for their clients, you don't need me to do it, is outbound calling. So, this is tearing it up. I'm telling you, this is really, and it's kind of exciting to me that you guys have not heard of it and or aren't doing it. Because man, this is big. We normally suggest, for example, I'll take probates as an example. We normally suggest that you send a total of 4 letters to each client. We now are suggesting that you send 2 letters, but also outbound call the lead. So let me tell you what that means. You're going to send a mailer out to your lead, and then several days later or a week later, you're going to have, you are either going to call that lead or you're going to have someone else call that lead, and you're going to say, hey, we sent you a letter a few days ago. We're just following up on that letter to see if you have a home that needs to be sold. That's it. The purpose is just simply identifying people with homes to sell. If you are going to do that, even better, because then you can transition immediately into asking about the home, getting the details of the home. And it's not a difficult call because it's a quick yes, no, and that letter really warms it up. There's plenty of investors out there who are just calling the lead and they're not following it up, or they're not sending the letter first. But what we're finding in our testing is that for whatever the reason, that letter really, really warms it up. Or I guess I should say, saying that you sent the letter warms it up. Our clients ask us, will you just say that you did if you didn't? And of course we won't do that, but I'm not saying to do it, I'm not saying not to do it. But saying, hey, we're just following up on a letter that we sent seems to really warm the call up, seems to really warm the seller up. And one of the things that's really cool about that is that the results are so immediate. Like with mailers, you really have to get into your mind that, you know, my phone's not going to ring off the hook incessantly right from the beginning. You know, I'm in this for the long haul, but for right now, outbound calling, when we start calling, when we open up those dialers and we start outbound calling those leads, it is immediate. Like I have yet to onboard a client that we haven't started to outbound call the leads for that didn't start getting house leads literally the first day that they started calling. So this is a really powerful thing right now. Do I think it's going to last forever? No, I do not. Is it hugely effective right now? Yes, it is. So you need to look into it. So what does it take to outbound call a lead? You do now, this is very, very, very recent, by the way. This is a blow to the real estate investment community. We were literally just, there was an audit that was done, and we were literally just deemed as real estate investors. Real estate investors now carry the title of telemarketer, whereas before we had not been officially declared telemarketers. And our argument in that scenario was, we're not telemarketers, we're not trying to sell something. But what the government has decided is that because we're contacting somebody with the intent to benefit from the relationship, we are deemed as a telemarketer. Now here's why that's important to you. You do have to scrub your phone numbers against the do not call list. So you do have to register on the government website. If you guys Google do not call, I think it's TS, just Google do not call list. It'll take you there. You have to register. You can get up to 5 area codes for free that you can scrub your list against. So it's not, that part is not the expensive part, all right? So that's not that big of a deal. But you do have to do it because there's hefty fines for you guys outbound calling your leads and not scrubbing it against the do not call list. Really hefty fines, okay? So you want to make sure that you do that. Then obviously you need to be set up for it. For, again, this is where I was telling you, the value of the boots on the ground investor, big companies can't compete with you. So when I'm outbound calling for my clients, I'm going through a company. I'll give you their name because you guys can go through that company as well. But I go through a company, and it's a big company, so you know they've got VAs dialing these leads like crazy. You know, it's just VAs picking up the phone and then emailing you the lead. All right. So but you guys as boots on the ground, if you're serious about it, and I'm telling you, if you are serious about lead gen, please consider doing this. I know it's kind of a sucky thing to do, and I wouldn't do it all day. You know, set aside an hour of your day, set aside 2 hours of your day to try outbound calling your leads and seeing if you can't generate some leads that way. You can also hire your own VA to do it. I don't know if anybody has ever come and talked. Joe McCall might have talked to you guys about VAs because he's really, really big on VAs. There is I'm about to give you guys some company names, and I have absolutely no affiliation with them. I have affiliation with them, but I'm not an affiliate, so I get nothing by you guys using them. I'm just throwing these names out there. There's a company called IVAS, IVAS. It stands for Investor Virtual Assistant Services. They specialize in VAs for real estate investors. By the way, that's a life-changing company for me. Because their VAs will also just do real estate tasks. It's not just outbound calling. So you can hire the VA. They're Philippine-based, but if you know that you want your VA to outbound call the lead for you, you can tell them, I want this person to outbound call, and they'll give you somebody that doesn't have a heavy accent. And you can actually interview them and see. I mean, when we picked our VAs, we literally did like a Skype interview and got to interview them and see how they sounded. But that was a game changer for us, not because we have our VAs outbound call, but because we have that VA now handle a lot of the little tasks that'll take you out. All right, so it's called IVAS. They can help you, get some of your work done. But the company that can outbound call for you, if you want to do that, is called Seller Snipers. Anybody ever heard of John Martinez? Yep. So John Martinez and actually some of the guys from that own IVAS do Seller Snipers, and they can outbound call your leads for you. If you guys don't want to do that yourself, you can actually hire that company to do that for you as well. Okay. You'll need to skip trace your leads. You can do that any number of ways. I recommend a company called blipleads.com. Blip Leads, BLIPLEADS, blipleads.com. It's not as easy as you think to skip trace. Skip tracing means that you're taking the information that you have, the seller information that you have, and you're getting phone numbers for them. You're putting it through a company to get phone numbers. There are ways that you can get registered to do this yourself, but it's very labor intensive, and you kind of have to. We choose to go to a company who does it. It's a little bit more expensive, but we even choose to do that because in order to get set up through TLO and LexisNexis and those kinds of things, technically you're not supposed to be using those. You're not supposed to be skip tracing for the intent of marketing. So we just decided we didn't want to be deceitful about what we were doing. But blipleads.com. But you could find any number of people to skip trace a lead. You could Google it. All right. Do you do it in-house or do you outsource? That's up to you guys, but obviously if you do it yourself, it's free. So if you've got a lot of time on your hands and you're trying to hit the ground running with your business, at the very least, I think it's valuable for you to try to do it yourself so that you know that when you outsource it, you know what it takes, you know what it's going to take. You can come up with your lead scripts, you can come up and identify like the nuances of your area and the people that are going to be calling, so you can give that feedback to the person that's calling the lead for you. Now, there's something to be said about speed versus quality, because this is a big debate in real estate circles. Is it better to have a really qualified person, a you, call the lead, or is it better to have a VA call that lead over and over and over and identify that house? Because when a VA is calling, they're not there to sell, they're just there to give you the lead and then you gotta sell them, right? My opinion, I have to admit, based on my own experience, is that especially with certain types of leads, it's better to just call. I'm going to beat you to the lead every time is the bottom line. If I'm outbound calling and I've got 1,000 VAs with an auto dialer calling those numbers, yes, if dollar for dollar, if you and I were, if I put my VA against you and you both talk to the same seller, of course you're gonna win every single time. So I'm not trying to negate that, but if you've got a large volume of leads to get through, I would say that speed of implementation is probably more important than quality of person calling the lead. Okay. Also, I know a lot of the bigger guys that will hire people. Man, that's a tough job. It's a tough job to manage, because the job satisfaction in the States on that stuff is low. I mean, at the end of the day, it's high turnover. Unless you're the kind of person that just really enjoys doing that, it just kind of sucks. I don't like doing it. All right, what time is it, Brian?
7:45.
7:45. Okay. So listen, I got through some of the tedious stuff. I want to talk to you guys just a little bit. I've just got a little bit more to go. I want to talk to you guys just a little bit about some of the things that I think can make the difference in marketing and in your real estate businesses as well. And it's what Postal Impact was created for, honestly. I talked a little bit at the beginning about doing things elegantly and knowing where to put your effort. Okay, so I know oftentimes in real estate, one of the most difficult things is deciding where it is that your effort is going to go, and/or spreading yourself too thin. All right. So I want to talk to you guys about minimum effective dose. I think it was Tim Ferriss that I got this particular definition from. The minimum effective dose being defined as the smallest dose that will produce a desired income. And anything beyond the minimum effective dose is wasteful. So what I mean by that, let me give you a visual example of that. When they study things like vitamins, or they study things like medicines, you have a max saturation level, right? So they know about how much vitamin C or E that you can consume before your body is just your body can't absorb it anymore. So you can keep taking that, and you can overdose on that stuff if you want, but at the end of the day, your body really can't consume it. That's what it means, that anything beyond minimum effective dose is wasteful. So if you need your water to boil, and you need boiling water to cook your food or whatever, it can get hotter than boiling. The water can get hotter than it takes to get your water to boil, but anything beyond the boil point is inconsequential. It's unnecessary, okay? So one of the dilemmas that I have, and I don't, sometimes I feel like I'm out there all by myself with this. Maybe some of you guys, maybe it's going to resonate with some of you guys, maybe it's not, but I exhaust myself by working way more than I should. Then because I'm working way more than I should, I struggle to maintain my interest and my focus in what I'm doing, including in the things that at one point excited me. Then because I am unable to maintain my interest and my focus, and I'm just kind of sitting there and I realize, holy crap, I didn't get anything done, I start believing that I'm lazy and ineffective. Has anybody I am like the biggest hustler on the planet, I'm gonna tell you right now. And sometimes I can get all over myself and be like, what is wrong with you? Did I suddenly become a lazy person? Like, I'm a hustler, I can work hard. I've pulled 2 overnighters before and felt fine and gotten up and given a presentation, but then there's other times when I'm like, I honestly feel like I cannot get one thing done. Then when I start to get in my head about feeling like I'm possibly lazy and ineffective, I begin to doubt my actual results and my actual ability, and I start going, maybe I just got lucky. I don't know. Maybe I just got lucky. Maybe I really can't do all that. Maybe it was just luck. Does that resonate with anybody? Good, I'm glad. Then what happens is I bury my head in the sand, and there's things that needed to get done. I'm burying my head in the sand because now I don't want to do anything because I'm in my head about everything, until the pain finally becomes too great. I pull my head out of the sand. I'm a rock star for a week to get back to where I need to be operational, and then this whole thing starts all over again. This whole cycle starts all over again. It's the worst. So I would say like 2 years ago, I was reading, I love the book, I love the 80-20 principle. Does everybody know what that is? The 80-20 principle basically just says that 80% of what you produce or what is produced comes from 20% of your effort. So essentially 80% of your output comes with 20% of your effort, and the other 20% of your effort actually takes 80% of your effort, okay, if you apply it from an 80% standpoint. Now, there's another way to look at that, like from a customer base, when companies are teaching the 80-20 principle, and this is proven that, and I can say it even of my own business, I make 80% of my money from 20% of my clients. And then the other 80% of my clients, the ones that take my time and the ones that take a ton of effort, give me 20% of my income. right? So one of the things that businesses do when they're applying the 80-20 principle is they encourage you to look at your own business that way and say, what is it that's taking up a ton of your time, that's not worth the effort, and get rid of that, all right? So for me, I got so sick and tired of this cycle that I felt like I was in, where I felt like some moments I felt like I was an absolute rock star, and the other moments I felt like I was a complete loser. And I combined these two, the minimum effective dose and the 80-20 principle, where I'm focusing on the 20% where I know that I can shine, the minimum effective dose. And that's it. I'm eliminating everything else. So I'm maximizing my effectiveness and I'm minimizing my burnout, because anybody can do, everyone in this room can do something for 20% of the time, right? So if you divide, even if you just took your day and divided it up into, let's say 5 hours, and you said, anybody can, like to say I'm gonna give it 150% for 5 hours seems daunting, but to say I'm gonna give 150% for 1 hour doesn't. How many of you can relate to going, man, if I had given if this day I had just given 1 hour's worth of effort, 150%, that would have been a killer day. But instead you wasted time for the day and basically didn't get anything done and then got back into that mindset. So the point is bringing amazingness versus moments of greatness combined with mediocrity. Right? So you're making a decision that I am going to be amazing in this moment, not just I'm going to have a moment of greatness that gets spread out too thin. So I know that for me, this had a huge impact on my frustration level, because I'm not trying to give 100% all the time. I'm giving 150%, 20% of the time, and then I am giving myself permission to be done. Now, what happens is that success breeds success. So all of us know that that continues, but at the end of the day, everything else for me is a cherry on the top. So anything else that I get done, I have just crushed my day if I kill it for 20% of my day and I give it 150%. Anything else is the cherry on top. And if I decide, or I just can't give anything else, then I call it a killer day and I put it to bed. And I just own that, all right? So I'm identifying what is my strongest area of contribution and showing up huge when it counts the most. And this is what's really important in real estate, in marketing, in anything. Identifying what is your strongest area of contribution and making sure that all of your effort gets funneled into your strongest area of contribution, and figuring out a way to get rid of everything else. Figuring out a way to offload that, because all of that other stuff is just going to pull you down. All right? So the strategy for implementing this is I started with my vision. What is my desired outcome? And this is really important in real estate, guys. I cannot stress this to you enough. It's what my mentor has beat into me for the past 7-8 years. What is your vision? Where are you trying to go? What are you trying to accomplish? All right? Determining my strongest area of contribution, going in all in 20% of the time. Here's the key. You've got to apply this in every single area of your life. Relationships, for me, there's a spiritual aspect to it, giving, health, and business, okay? Because you've got to have balance, and if you can apply this principle in every area of your life, and you feel like you're winning in each area of your life, I cannot tell you the effect of the bleed over. I honestly believe that if you don't have your relationships, spiritual, giving, health in line, it's going to have a huge impact on the ultimate success of your business. You're never going to be optimally successful if you're not balanced in those areas. All right, so I want to give you some examples, just real life applications. About 2 years ago, I realized, man, I am trying so hard to work out. I'm trying to, do specific things. I was trying to do specific things as far as my body was concerned, and I realized that only the last 20% of my results were coming from 80% of my workouts. It started, I might have started with like the 4-hour body. And what I realized is that I was trying to do so much that when I couldn't do all of it, I did nothing. And it was sabotaging everything, okay? Please make sure that you're applying this in a business mind as well. You know, when it comes to marketing, you get so overwhelmed with all of that stuff. That's why we're talking about focus and picking what you're going to do and just making sure you hit it over and over and over again, because what ends up happening otherwise is that you're going to try to go in 1,000 different directions, and then you're not going to do anything because it's completely overwhelming. So currently what I figured out is, what does it take for me to get 80% of my results, and I don't care about the other 20% because I'm not willing to give and this is key, I'm not willing to give the other 80% that it takes. I get results from the other 80% of the effort that I give, but I'm not willing, if I really look at it and I go, okay, am I really willing to give 80% of my results for the last 20, or 80% effort for the last 20% of the results? I'll let the other 20% of the results go. I'm good with that. So currently I work out about an hour a week. I'm in better shape than I've been in my entire life, because I'm not on the roller coaster anymore of that high and low. I'm not like, well, I don't have 2 hours today to go to the gym, so I'm just not going to go. And since I didn't go yesterday, then I'm not going to go today. Since I didn't go today, why would I go tomorrow? I just got off that roller coaster. I identified what is the smallest amount of work that I have to do to get the result that I want. What's totally realistic for me to execute. So from a business standpoint, what is totally realistic? Stop making these crazy goals that you're never going to be able to sustain. If the only thing that's realistic for you right now is to go, I am going to look at one MLS listing a day, then do that. But for the love of God, do that over and over and over and over again. If you go, I can only do 10 mailers, I can only drive through one neighborhood, I can only do this, start somewhere, but make sure that whatever it is, it's realistic enough for you to do it over and over and over again until you can increase that amount of time. Okay. Now I know that some of you are working, so it might be every Saturday I'm going to do this, but start with a realistic amount of time and don't let anything knock you off that time. All right. So with relationships, I'm a single mom. So not only am I a single mom, I'm a single mom and I've got my kids the vast majority of the time. And the truth of the matter is, I just wanted to knock them out at the time. You know, I would feel guilty about the fact that, you know, they've got a limited relationship with their dad. I would feel guilty about what they didn't have. I would feel guilty about them coming from a broken family. And I was trying, all the time that I was spending with them, I was just trying so hard, you know, to give, frankly, more than I had to give. And what I decided with my kids is to be fully engaged with them 20% of the time rather than semi-conscious with them 100% of the time. It doesn't mean that I'm not there for them, but it does mean that I have segmented time that I go, this is yours and yours alone. I'm not going to have my phone. I'm not going to be glancing at anything. I'm not going to be doing anything. I'm going to do that 20% of the time, and then the rest of the time I'm going to see what happens if I give myself permission to be present, but not completely try to be totally and fully engaged. And I got to tell you, my kids are about to turn 13 and 15. So coming into those wicked knock you out years. And my relationship with them is better than it's ever been. Honestly, but I make sure that I show up that percentage of the time, and I give myself permission the rest of the time to be present, but not like, you know, hovering over them and always trying to make sure their time is filled and always trying to make sure that I do something. With my friends, I said my close friends are only going to be with people who challenge me to be better and bring out the best of me, and I am going to require of myself that I reciprocate that. If I'm going to be your friend, I want to make sure that I'm pulling the best out of you. I want you to walk away from your interactions with me going, man, I want to be a better person. And I want you to do that for me. And if not, then I'm not saying that I'm not going to talk to you, but I'm going to be really limited with the amount of time that I spend with anybody who doesn't do the same thing for me. So I'm going to require it of myself. If I want that from you, I'm going to require it of myself. And man, that has done wonders. It's cut way back. I have a much tighter, closer group of friends. But man, when we get together, and it doesn't even have to be like about business. I'm saying I want to be with funny people, because when I'm with funny people, I'm funnier. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? I want to be with people who have integrity, because they encourage me to have more integrity, right? So just think about those things. When it comes to spiritual, what's my zero compromise personal commitments? So, I was trying to read my Bible and pray and worship and do this and do that. And then again, I would get overwhelmed and I would fall off. And for me, this is a personal thing. But what I finally came to is, no, here's what I can commit to doing every single day without fail. It doesn't matter if I'm traveling, it doesn't matter if I'm home, whatever, It's not going to be, I'm going to try to pray for 45 minutes because that's not realistic for me. It just isn't. Does it happen sometimes? Sure it does. But what's realistic for me is that I'm going to wake up in the morning, I'm going to read a very specific amount of scripture, I'm going to make sure that I quickly pray after that. If it extends beyond that, great. But after that, I'm good. I'm gonna relieve myself of the guilt of not doing anything more than that, but I am going to do that without compromise. For me, I read one psalm a day, one proverb a day, and pieces from other scripture, and then I pray, and then if that's all that it is for the day, I give myself permission to be done. It's the best thing that I've ever done. Best thing I've ever done. In my music ministry, I'm the worship leader at our church, and this is true in your businesses, guys. This will change your life in your businesses too. I actually had to tell my church, you guys have to protect me from some of this other stuff that I get pulled into. We got lights and we got sound and we got all this stuff, and I actually really enjoy that stuff. They do productions, and I used to do some talent stuff, mentoring and stuff like that. So, they'll be like, can you look at the scene and see what kind of recommendations that you make? I actually love doing that stuff. But what I recognize is that if I do that stuff, it's pulling away from my highest area of contribution, which is being a worship leader. So I can't get caught up in the sound, and I can't get caught up in the lights, and as much as I like doing that stuff, if I do that, it's gonna make me less in the area that I'm supposed to be showing up big. So when you think about your businesses, guys, you think about that, man. When you start to get sucked into stuff that's not your highest area of contribution, you need to look your people in the face and say, listen, you can pull me into this stuff if you want, but we're all gonna suffer if you do that because I'm not operating in my highest area of contribution. You've got to figure out what makes you the most money and focus all of your efforts on that and try to figure out a way to get the other people to handle the stuff that you're not as good at, all right? This is a quick one. In my vision for years I had that I wanted to give 20%, and it never seemed like the good time. And I'm going to tell you something. If you will apply these principles, I actually made a commitment, several years back that, nope, I'm going to do it now. If I'm going to have integrity. If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to start doing it now, even when it doesn't seem like I can do it. And the second I did it, everything changed. I mean, I just can't stress that enough. So in business, we already touched on this. Refusing to do anything, start anything, or take part in anything that's going to require you to give more of yourself than your vision allows you to give. You need to set time commitments and require those contributions to fit into the defined space. Don't have this weird, I'll just work until my fingers fall off, because it just never stops. There's no end on that. There's just no end date on that. One more quick example just to bring the point home. As I started to apply this in my business, I got really excited about it because I saw how much that it would change. And I started to look at, I started to apply this in every area of my life. And I realized that I wore 20% of my wardrobe 80% of the time. And I know the girls in here are gonna relate to that. And I was like, man, why is this happening? Why do I have all of these clothes that I don't wear? And then I have the favorites that I do wear all the time. And I realized that, I was just being mediocre about my shopping and choosing and that kind of thing. So I decided with my shoes and my clothes that I was going to stop worrying about how much something cost, and I was only going to buy things that I really loved. And then I went one step further and I purged, because I realized that as I was flipping through all that mediocre stuff, man, that stuff gets on you. I don't know how to explain it, but that mediocrity in your, if you've got piles on your desk, or, the stuff that bothers you, that gets on, what is it? It contaminates everything. Man, I went through my wardrobe and I forced myself, and I looked at it like that. I said, is this promoting mediocrity or whatever? And I purged all that stuff out. And not only did it free up a ton of time, because now I'm not flipping through stuff, but the mindset that happens when you change that and you go, nope, 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 I need to be in my 20%, and I only want stuff that I'm going to crush it in. And I'm not going to worry about how the rest of the stuff is going to play out. I'm just going to focus on that 20%. It changes everything. So you're eliminating anything and everything that promotes mediocrity, and you're refusing to get sucked into anything that promotes mediocrity. You've got to look at it like that. So when I applied that principle, my output eclipsed my results every single time without exception. There's no area of my business that I didn't apply this to that it didn't revolutionize my entire business. I'm telling you. I limited my involvement to short bursts, and it almost always, for me, I'm not saying everybody works in bursts. I've just found that that is how I work. I work best in bursts. So I show up really, really big. I produce rock star results, and then I'm not stretching those results too thin, because what I found out is that I was taking away my own, I was taking away my, it's the equivalent of you saying what you're going to do something and delivering on it every time versus you delivering on some of the time and people also knowing that sometimes you don't deliver, you know? So at the end of the day, I want to be a woman of my word. If I say I'm going to do something, I want somebody to go, no, she said she's going to do it, so she's going to do it. Because you can do that 80% of the time, but if 20% of the time you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, you're stretching your effectiveness out, and people aren't going to know you as the rock star that you are. So at the end of the day, if you want to like have those kinds of results, it's not sustainable. You cannot do it all the time. If you choose to show up in people's lives and be a rock star 20% of the time, that's what they're going to remember. You know, versus the 80% of the time that you choose to just remove yourself altogether instead of showing up in a, you know, I almost said half-ass. I don't know if I could say half-ass in here, in a half-ass kind of way. All right. So successful people don't try to hit every single ball. They just identify their greatness and position themselves to be great at the exact right moments. Does that make sense? All right. So, do we have time for Q&A?
Yeah, you want to do Q&A?
Yeah, man.
We're going to do some Q&A with Christina. Does anyone have a question for her? Because I'm going to ask her some questions too. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question about the labels.
Yeah.
Okay, on the back, was it personal names on the back or your company name?
Oh, good. That's a great question. Okay, so we find that a family name is ideal. So so if I were sending mailers, what's your last name?
Perryman.
Perryman. Mm-hmm. So if I were sending mailers for you, I'd probably say the Perryman family and put the address on your label. So yeah, we don't normally suggest with those high-end mailers putting a business name on the back of the mailer because you want it to look like a personal invitation. So we'll either say the Perryman family or the Perrymans, but you know, something that feels a little bit more personal.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Sam.
What intervals, so you said you keep hitting the same list, what intervals would you say?
Oh, I missed that because of what happened with the computer. that's such a good question too. How often, if you're going to drip a mailer, how often do you think you should drip it? Like, what's the interval?
Weekly.
Weekly?
Every Friday.
Okay, monthly. Almost every time people say every month, okay? Here's the little twist that I'm going to put on that, and this is big. I would say if you're, yes, mail it every month, mail it every week if you want. If you have the budget to mail it every week, that's pretty badass, do that. Most people mail every month, but here's my tweak on that. Mail it every either 3 weeks, 5 weeks, or 6 weeks, because it is absolutely important to hit people at different times of the month. If you are constantly hitting everybody at the same time every month, you're going to hit them at their same point every month, and that might not be their pain point. Their pain point might not be the 30th of every month. Their pain point might be the 15th of every month. So if you mix up the timing of your mailer, then you're going to hit them at different points of the month, which might be the time of the month that speaks to them, because everybody's pain point is different.
Christina, can y'all hear me out of this? Is there too much? Can you mail too much?
It depends. I would not mail specialty mailers that often because people are going to start to recognize them. They're going to be like, all right, I got it, which is not that bad of a thing either. But with postcards, it's more about your budget. Because with postcards, guys, are definitely, as many postcards as are going out, trust me, if you're sending a postcard to a list, you are not the only one. 100% of the time, you're not the only person contacting that person. I'm going to tell you that right now. So it's more probably... I could be wrong, but I think that's more luck of the draw. I think postcards are more, did you happen to get lucky? Did they happen to pick up your postcard on the exact right day at the exact right time? So the more often you hit it with the postcard, the better. So I wouldn't say this too much, although I think like daily might be too much. But at the end of the day, if you're tracking your results, that's really important too. Like, if you can say, all right, for every 5,000 postcards that I send, I get one deal. Then send as many 5,000 drops as you can, because that's going to generate your deal. You've really got to track what you're spending versus your actual deal output. Once you have that solid number, then it's just a matter of getting the money to duplicate that over and over and over and over again. And that's the bottom line.
At what point in the probate process do you start targeting people? Because I don't know exactly when they can sell a house. So
Yep.
I'm curious about that.
That's a great question. Here in Alabama, this would be my guess, okay? In super competitive markets, we literally will go in as soon as we possibly can to grab it, to get to that person as quickly as possible, even though we know that if we send the first mailer out, they're likely still in the middle of the probate process, the judge hasn't approved the sale, we've got to wait through the process. Normally, and what I would guess is probably best for this particular part of the country, is I would normally say to wait at least 1 full month between the date that they opened, or the date the probate got opened, until the date that you market to it. So, for example, if you were going in today to grab probate leads, what is this, February? I would actually tell you to grab December. Like, I would tell you to go into the probate and grab all of the December probates, because it gives them a little bit of time to get through that process. So if you're not in a super duper competitive market, and I would say that that's probably, I wouldn't say that you guys are like a crazy hotbed.
I'm just gonna say no comment. It's probably best to say no comment. This is not really that competitive a market.
No, mine isn't either. I live in
Most of you
Delaware.
guys don't want me to say that, but it's really not.
No, I live in Delaware, and clearly there are investors, okay? But trust me, we have it easy. I got to tell you, people always want to know what my results are, and I tell them I don't want to tell you. I almost don't even want to tell you what my open rate is and what my convert rate is, because if you try to take that and compare it to Florida or Arizona or California or Texas or some of these incredibly competitive states that are like 0.02% open rate or response rate on mailers, you can't compare it. I'm going to get you excited about something that I can't deliver on. But I would think in a market like this, you guys probably have it pretty good. It's just a matter of you picking what you're going to do and doing it consistently.
Yeah, how can they get the book?
Oh, Big Profits and Probates. Yes, I'm glad that you said that. I think the best way, I was hoping to get you guys a code, because the book is sold on our website. And I was hoping to get you a code so that you could just go in and put the code in and grab the book. But unfortunately, I just didn't have time to get that set up before we came. So what I want you to do is write this down for me. Rachel, R-A-C-H-E-L, Rachel at postalimpact.com. In your memo section, just put AlaREIA for me. And just email her, please.
You said Rachel at what?
Rachel at Postal Impact. That's the name of my company. Rachel at postalimpact.com. If for some reason you forget about that, just go to our website and fill out a contact us form and just say that you're looking for the book, and I will have Rachel send you a digital copy of that book, okay? But all you have to do is put AlaREIA in the memo section of your email. You don't even have to say anything else, and I'll just make sure that Rachel gets you back a copy, okay? R-A-C-H-E-L, Rachel. Rachel at postalimpact.com.
What is your website?
Postalimpact.com. Yep.
Any other questions for Christina? I got a bunch.
Yeah, if anybody, thank you for that question. If anybody's interested in working with us, I can't guarantee you that we can, because what we only work with one client depending on the lead in each county, because what we do is so effective and so specific, to be honest with you, that once we work with one client, we kind of lock it out. But if you're interested in our services and what we might be able to do for you, just go to our website and fill out a contact form. There's a contact us form on our website. You could just fill that out and tell us what counties that you're working in, so that we can look to see if we're working with any other investors in your particular county, and the specific lead types that we are, let us know what specific lead types that you're interested in.
Any other questions for Christina? I'm gonna ask a few, if that's cool. Thank you, by the way, you shared a ton of awesome stuff. The contacts, hopefully you guys took notes on some of those contacts that she gave you guys. It's really cool
Yep.
of you to do that. Appreciate that. So I got a couple of kind of deeper questions, but then I got a couple of maybe less deep questions. We'll start with that. You mentioned common leads. What is, like, for those, because there's a lot of new people here actually.
Okay.
What's just a common, because you said, for a common lead, yeah, it's okay to send a postcard.
Yes.
What is a common lead?
I should have defined that better. To me, common leads are leads that are well known in the real estate community. They're really inexpensive to get. You can get them from any of the list companies, List Source, Listability. I mean, you could Google real estate investment leads and get any number of companies that you can buy these leads from. Super common leads are absentee owner leads, absentee cross-checked with high equity, or high equity owner leads. What are some of the other super common ones that you guys are marketing to now? What are you marketing?
I mean, absentee is probably the most common.
Yeah, I would say that's super duper common. It's a really inexpensive lead to get, and it's one of those leads that you just really kind of want to pound it with postcards consistently over and over, because that is an example of a lead where a seller who might not want to sell today might want to sell 2 days from now. The motivation of that particular seller is constantly changing. So it's not a limited lifetime lead. Same thing with the absentee vacant, by the way. I have my clients drip, we hit that with a specialty mailer just because it's such a hot lead right now. So we hit it with a specialty mailer, and then we outbound call the lead. But then once we feel like we've kind of exhausted that, then they go to a drip, postcard drip on that lead forever and ever, because why not? We know that this is a lead that's valuable really forever, and you can keep marketing to it until they tell you to stop.
Christina, what about Freedom of Information Act stuff? Do you do anything with that, like requesting things from the county or the state? Like, I think the tax delinquent list is for, do you guys do anything with that, or what do you recommend with that? Maybe eviction lists, nuisance liens,
Yep.
those types of things. Would you consider that a common lead? Or
No,
is that
absolutely not.
Specialty lead, is that something that you guys do and you track? Or?
We do it in some areas. It's difficult with evictions, and again, this is why boots on the ground are so valuable. What you guys have, what you are able to do, I wouldn't miss your meeting for all the money in the world next week, because what you were talking about are the kind of leads that you guys can go and get that your typical investor is never going to take the time to go and get. Any kind of lead where you're having to take some extra steps to try to find this information, you're beating out 75% of the other people out there who aren't going to go through that kind of trouble. So if you can find out how to get your code violations, it's different for every county, which is one of the reasons why it's hard for us to get it, because every single county is different. Code violations. And code violations are, owners that have what some people call nuisance properties. They continue to get violations for their properties being in disrepair. That's why code violations are a good lead to market to. So code violations, tax delinquents, evictions are a great one. There are ways usually in your county, in your specific county, that you can figure out how to get those leads and market to those leads. Same thing with driving for dollars, man. That's another really, getting to know your farm area and driving around and looking for houses that that look like they're in disrepair. One of the things that my clients do, and we've thought about testing this, is he'll scratch out a real quick note, like super fast. You could even scratch out a bunch of these while you're watching TV. Like, hey, I happened to be driving by your house, wondered if it's for sale. I mean, something super duper fast that you could write out a crap ton of them while you're, while you're watching TV. And then when you drive by the house, it's all ready. You get the address, put the address on there, pop it in the mailbox. I have clients who do that, like big guys who still have their people on the ground doing that. That's the kind of thing I could never compete with. I can't compete with that for all the money in the world. I'm never gonna, have people driving around neighborhoods doing that for clients. So that's some of the ways that you guys can really stand out head and shoulders.
Divorce leads. You mentioned divorce in there. So I feel like that's really difficult to do. What do you guys do to get divorce leads, and how do you know that the divorce even has an asset? Yeah,
normally you don't know. You're just mailing to people who have publicly, like you're going to public record,
Gotcha.
You're getting divorced, and it's a little bit like probate, but probably even a little less effective. You're just kind of gambling on the fact that they have a home that they want to sell.
Gotcha. So there's a lot of, guys, obviously there's tons and tons of things that we're talking about right now. And we're obviously all talking about direct mail. If you had to pinpoint one lead,
Yeah.
go after this lead, and there's a room full of 100 people here. All you guys go do this. Pinpoint one lead. What's the one lead that you say you have to do this every single week, every single month you have to do this?
Oh man. See, I'm biased because I'm not kidding. I've been investing since 1999. There's not a lead I've not tried. I've done short sales. I've done everything you can possibly imagine. And I'm telling you, I'm not lying when I say that for 7 straight years, I marketed to probate exclusively because it was just that lucrative for me. It just gave me everything that I needed. I didn't want the enormous volume. I wanted to do 4 or 5, again, single mom through this period of time. I wanted to do 4 to 5 deals a year, but I wanted to make 50, 60 grand, pushing 70. That was my range for my flip. I wanted to make, and the only way that I was going to get that kind of margin was to target a really specific kind of lead. So, the truth of the matter is, from a money standpoint, I was competing with some guys that were out there hustling, but they were making 2-3 grand on a wholesale every time. So, you kind of have to look at what direction that you want to move in and target that. So I have to say probate, just because probate for me has been a consistent performer. I'll never stop marketing to probate. I own probate in my area, but it's because we do it like clockwork. There is not another investor on the face of the planet that goes in like we do and gets that lead every single month and markets to that lead like a dirty, we got it locked down.
You got it.
We got it locked down. So if you can be consistent, I gotta tell you, I think probate.
Who's interested in looking for probate leads? I'm curious now. Okay, so just letting you guys know, there are like 30 probate leads per month in Jefferson County. There's like hardly any.
Yeah.
So what's the next step? We all race down to the courthouse.
Yeah, well, yeah, kind of. And here's the deal. I mean, I hate to say it this way. How many of you raise your hand? 40? I can almost guarantee you. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go, you're going to read the book, you're going to figure out how to get the lead, you're going to see 10 people there while you're there, and then when you go the second month, you're going to see 5. And then when you go the third month, you're going to see 1. And then when you go the 4th month, you're going to be the only one there. I'm just telling you, I'm telling you how it is. No, people aren't going to do this. And the truth of the matter is, probably neither are you. That's why I have the kind of business that I do, because we do it and we don't stop. But get somebody else to do it for you then. Go do it. Hire, somebody who's going to do it consistently, and then you have to be able to manage that person and make sure that they do it. But at the end of the day, here's the bottom line. You guys have to figure out in your businesses what you are not going to do consistently, and figure out a way to either make yourself do it consistently or get somebody who's going to do it consistently. That's what it's all about.
I'm sorry, here in Jefferson County, this is what I experienced last year. The probate court is actually marketing through the properties that were estate, no owner, through a realtor. And so I contacted her, there's one realtor that's been good luck, there was 2 of them that I was looking at. But unfortunately, the investors
I mean, it seems awfully shady. I don't. Yeah. I would try to figure out how to be the investor that they're throwing those leads to. Whatever that realtor is doing, I'd be like, what do I need to do?
Well, Mike, they're not getting all of them, Mike.
They're
I'll
not,
tell you that.
I'm just saying, from my experience, two properties in Bed Grove, watching those two properties, and they both went through the curve.
Yeah.
They've been vacant for about 7 or 8 years. but they weren't killed.
Okay.
I'm just
Remember.
saying that- And then according to her, I prefer not to give her name right now, because according to her, it's with a well-known real estate company, that's her specialist. We were emailed for several months, and she is getting most of the properties on probate before they ever get to before us. And I'm just curious, I'm just saying, have you read into that? You think so?
I've not ever heard of that before, but here's the bottom line. The first thing is, the vast majority of the properties that you're going to make your most money on in probate is the same kind of property you're going to make out of probate, and that's like hugely distressed properties. I mean, gosh, you guys have heard the horror stories, but you know, the hoarding properties, these are going to be properties that a realtor's not going to be able to list likely to begin with. Also, guys, I just can't say enough. I wish I could tell you how many deals I've gotten from people who've said, you're not my highest and best offer, but I really, really, really trust you and I really like you. So don't discredit your ability if you will reach out and you will, make that contact. Don't discredit your ability to convince somebody. I mean, and when I talk to people as far as probate is concerned, I'm always throwing in a little shade, like a little light shade. So I'll say, listen, if you have the time to wait out the market and you have the time to wait through, a buyer being interested and then maybe disqualifying and then having to relist it, if you have the time to go through the sales process, you're going to make more money by listing this property than you are with me. The reason why people buy properties or sell properties to me is because I'm a guaranteed close and I can do it quickly. So you just kind of put those little bugs in their ears, like, do I really want to go through the process of having people walk through the house and having to do all of this? I really emphasize the fact that, listen, you can walk into that house, you can take what you want, you can leave everything else. That's what I do. So I'm an easy button for sure, and I tell them point blank, if you're looking for top dollar for your property, I'm not the one. But if you're looking for a guaranteed close and you're looking for a fast close, I can help you out.
Any other questions for Christina? Drew?
I've gone to the courthouse and pulled probate leads.
Yeah.
I've done it in Shelby County. Shelby County was relatively easy.
Okay.
Make a phone call and they help you out. Jefferson County, piggyback what he said,
Yep.
it's not that way.
Yep.
What do you do with the difficult counties?
You know what I do, honestly? I love them. Because the more difficult it is, the less people are going to do it. Here's the bottom line. We just went through this right before we started outbound calling for our clients, and I really want to encourage you guys to look at every part of your business this way when you run up against something like that. What makes you most valuable to your businesses is when you run into an issue like that and you go, okay, how do I fix this? How do I make this work? How do I love it when things, we were kind of freaking out because direct mail is down everywhere, and direct mail was our jam and still is our jam, but we were like, man, at the end of the day, you can only keep clients motivated when they're paying a lot of money for direct mailers. When direct mail goes down, my client retention goes down. We got to figure out another way. You got to figure out a way, because the harder that something gets, the more of an opportunity there is for you to step in and just kill it. I bet, honestly, I can almost guarantee you, if you sit down, remember when we were talking about focus? If you'd sit down for 30 minutes and go, okay, here's what I'm facing in Jefferson, I bet you could come up with 3 different ideas of, and I don't know the specifics, but I'll bet you could come up with 3 different ideas. Like if you would just quiet your brain and think about, okay, how can I resolve this issue? Or what are some ideas that I could have? Okay, I could go and talk to the clerk and find out how that's happening, or I could do this, or how do I do this Wouldn't it be cool if? I love that question. Brene Brown asked that question. Wouldn't it be cool if? Wouldn't it be cool if there was an easier way to do that? How do I do that? Right? So ask yourself that question. Guys, give yourself a second to think about stuff, and your brain, if you ask yourself the right question, your brain will look for an answer and it'll find it. I promise. So get quiet about it. You know, look at what your obstacles are. Don't deny the obstacle is there. Look at the obstacle and then go, okay, how do I kill that? Because you can. There's a way to do it. And if you can figure it out, you're going to be probably the only one who would have put the time into figuring it out, and then you're going to own it.
So, my wife and I, we've been marketing for absentee owners.
Okay.
And last month, the last 3 deals we had were all probates. So is that normal?
It could. You will absolutely get crossover. Of course, my response to that is yes, of course it's probate, because probate is awesome. But yeah, of course it could be, because if you're marketing to absentee owner, it's very possible that let's give an example. The owner of that house had to go and live in a convalescent home. So it's been vacant, you know, for a year or two, and they're no longer delivering mail, but the family doesn't want to sell the home because they're still alive, or maybe they can't sell the home because there's legal issues. This person can no longer really give permission to sell the home. They've got to get power of attorney. I mean, there's any number of things that could be happening. So anytime you market to any list, there's going to be crossover. Just like when we do the absentee vacant list, you could also market to vacant properties, and it's going to cross. You're also going to be marketing to absentee owner properties by default. So there's going to be all kinds of crossover with these lists. The key, actually, in my mind, is combining some of those things and filtering your leads further. So take absentee owner. That's a hugely valuable list. What factor can you add to absentee owner to make that lead more valuable? I'm not telling you what the answer is. I'm telling you to spend 15 minutes and ask yourself that question. What filter can I add to absentee owner that would target a motivated seller even more elegantly? You know, and it could be code violations. It could be, golly dang it, off the top of eviction. It could be anything, right? Something bad is happening in an area. There's an elevated crime rate in a specific area. Okay, so then you go, ooh, I wonder if I could do, and you can't always do it. You're going to come up with some ideas, and there's no way to filter it that way. But if you go to these specialty lead companies and you go, okay, if I gave you this zip code and said I want absentee owner, and then I want you to also cross-check that with, let's say, divorce. That wouldn't work because the divorce list is low. But as an example, think about those kinds of things and ask those questions and ask yourself, is it realistic? Is there a way for me to target this? Could I possibly target absentee owners who also, I know the property is vacant? Is it possible? Oh, it is possible. Let's hit that. But just ask yourself how you can combine things to make a specialty lead.
Yes, sir.
How would I get postal vacancies?
Now, that is one of those leads where there's literally like probably 3 or 4 companies in the United States that have access to that information. So I actually, just because of what we do, I know somebody who has access to it, which is how we had that lead. So that's not a common lead. Like, you can't go to ListSource, or you can't go to just any list company and get that lead. That's a true specialty lead. Just like you can't go to anybody and get probate, because probate is so labor intensive. Like, we literally have hundreds of people across the nation that walk into courthouses to gather leads for our clients. So not everybody even wants to do that. So sometimes not everybody has access to the list. And sometimes not everybody's willing to do the work that it takes. To be honest with you, I have clients ask me for code violations and evictions all the time, and it's so different for every single county, like the process and how they report that information, and more importantly, how frequently they report the information is so volatile that we've not locked into that lead yet, just because it's really hard. It's hard, and again, that's why people that are in your counties, those of you that are willing to go and get that information, I mean, you're way ahead of even the big dogs. Because, you know, as a bigger company, we have to figure out how to do it and have it make sense. We can do anything you want, but do you really want to pay $20 a lead? Probably not, you know? So we have to try to keep the you know, the costs realistic as well.
Christina, thank you so much. Guys, give her a round.